We have donations that come in the form of negatives. These are the 4x5 negatives, the usual 35mm negatives. Next, we have slides. Finally, we have prints. 3R, 4R, 5R, 8R, and some of these old photos is actually a really large format.
Hi, I'm Shuan and welcome to the Library Report, where we dive into never-before-heard stories and captivating characters both within and beyond our libraries and archives. In this episode, we talk to a photo archivist whose keen eye for photography transformed his passion into his everyday work.
Hi, I'm Ronnie and I'm a photo archivist with the National Archives of Singapore. I'm here to answer some of your questions. So let's go! What does a photo archivist do? Well, public or private organizations, as well as members of the public, come to us to archive their photos, and this would serve as useful references to these organizations as well as even to researchers in future. Okay, so how do photo archivists make all these records easily available to you? Well, we digitize them and we index them so that you can find them easily on archives online. What do you do in a typical workday? I start my day with coffee as usual. Like any good old worker, we will check our emails, right? We have different requests, we have different feedback, from members of the public or even sometimes from some organizations. Perhaps I can give you one example of feedback that we received. Researcher who was actually doing some research on the Singapore River noticed that one of the photos that we had was showing the Singapore River facing Cavenagh Bridge or the wrong way around. So he informed us and then we did our research and indeed we found out that it was flipped the wrong way around. So what we do is we put it back in its proper position and then we updated it. Now, what do you do when you receive a donation? The first thing that we do is to assess it for its condition, and after which we will do a listing of the photos in which we describe what the photo is all about, following which we will send them off for digitization. After it's come back from digitization, we have a group of people called the photo indexers who will actually do the indexing by inputting the metadata and ensure that these photos are being uploaded into our database called Archives Online so that you all can retrieve these photos. Now, there are some cases when there are photos which come in albums with sticky backing, and some of these photos have been there for 20, 30 years even, or even longer. Because of that, some of these photos tend to be stuck, literally stuck. So what we'll need to do is we need to send them to the Archives Conservation Lab, and this is where we have the experts to help us remove it such that there's no damage done to the photos. So this is where their help comes in, and then after which they are rehoused, and then we will send them off for digitization after we've done the listing of those photos. What is the best way to preserve photographs and film negatives? If you want a fast answer, digitize them. But if you have old photos or negatives that hold some special meaning to you, this is what you can do. For prints, it's best to keep them in acid-free paper at temperatures of 22 degrees and at relative humidity of 50%. Now, some of you may be wondering about film negatives, right? Now, film negatives are best kept in non-reactive jackets at relative humidity of 35% and at temperatures of between 17 to 19 degrees Celsius. Apart from old photos, what other formats do donations come in? We have donations that come in the form of negatives, and I'm sure this is something you have not seen before, especially if you're from the younger generation, and these are the 4x5 negatives. We also have the usual 35mm format negatives. We not just have the black and white negatives, but also the color negatives. And next we have slides. I was actually not surprised when some of the younger generation said, "What? Slides?" Yeah, these are the slides we are referring to, and these are the 35mm slides. Some of these slides are actually photos of Singapore River as well as Clifford Pier, long before they were redeveloped. And how do we view them? We use this one. This is called the slide projector. Finally, we have prints. Okay, they can come in 3R, 4R, 5R, 8R, and some of these old photos like this community center group photo is actually a really large format. So from all these formats, you can see that photography has evolved over the years. How do you get such sharp digital pictures from old negatives? How sharp a picture will be depends on a few factors. These include, number 1, the skill of the photographer, number 2, the equipment being used, as well as the way it was processed. And there's no way you can get sharp images from blurred negatives. What are some of the problems you face with old photographs? Okay, sometimes you receive photos that have been damaged by water or by insects, sometimes even by fungus, because of the damp conditions where the photos are kept in. So unfortunately for this kind of photos, we cannot do anything much to salvage them. Okay, sometimes you also receive negatives that are damaged. Like as you can see in this case, the edges of this negative have been totally damaged. Damage has gone into the actual image itself. So if you have to run this through a scanner, unfortunately, this part of the photo will be damaged. Okay, some negatives that come to us actually suffer from this thing called vinegar syndrome. It refers to film-based acetate degradation. Let me show you an example of a negative that is affected by vinegar syndrome. As you can see in this negative, right, it's actually curled up. And when they curl up, they tend to be very brittle. So if you can imagine running this negative through a scanner, chances are these negatives might break. Okay, let me show you a sample of a negative that's actually broken. Okay, and it's this one here. And not only that, sometimes you can see there are cases where the negatives actually remain stuck to the sleeve. So there's no way you can remove them without breaking them. Okay, now what happens when vinegar syndrome sets in onto, say, a folder full of negatives? We have to isolate the negatives, because if you leave them there, the other negatives will be affected too, and they might end up something like this again. Records like these are totally irretrievable once they are lost. Who are the biggest contributors to the archive's photo collection? The biggest contributors are the Ministry of Communications and Information and other government bodies such as stat boards. Can I request to see original photos on negatives? Most of our photos are actually available on Archive's online website, meaning that they've been digitized. However, if you want to see the original prints, you can always write into us. Now, why do you decide to become a photo archivist? Well, I've been a librarian with the National Library Board for over 20 years. After a while, I felt that maybe it's time for a change. So when there was an opening for a photo archivist in the National Archives, it ties in nicely with my passion for photography, as well as my interest in history. And here are some of the photos I've taken, just to show you what I've taken in the past. And now, this is one of my favorite photos, right? Now, can you tell me, where was this photo taken? I've asked my friends, and some of them wouldn't believe it when I said, this photo was taken in Singapore, not overseas. And they said, where? So I told them, it's actually in Jurong Bird Park. And they said, wow, I didn't know that Jurong Bird Park's waterfall is so beautiful. What does it take to be a photo archivist? I guess the first thing you must have is a passion for public service, because the archives is where the people will come to do their research. We as photo archivists, or for that matter any archivists in this National Archives, must have this passion for public service. Passion for photography will also help you to settle down quickly in the job, and it will also enable you to be able to select the best of the lot of photos that will be presented to you. So for instance, we had a case where a researcher came and asked, so which of these 50 photos do you think is the best one that I can use for my research? With your knowledge in photography, you can actually help the person choose the best for the task at hand. What are your favorite photos within the photo archive? The photos that I love to look out for are photos of the Singapore River over the years, to see how the landscape around it has changed. And the other photos that I would love to look at are those of kampongs that don't exist anymore. In fact, nowadays, you can only find one kampong in Singapore, and that's in Lorong Buangkok. Other than that, you have to go to Pulau Ubin to see one. How do you envision photo archiving to be like in the future? Well, I would envision photography enthusiasts archiving their own photos in social media platforms like Instagram. The challenge is to get all these little archives into one place where people can actually find the photos that they want. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you for watching this episode of the Library Report. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and comment down below other roles at NLB that you would like to see the next time. Do subscribe to the channel and click on that notification bell to get notified the next time we upload a video.